Tobias Ellwood is Conservative MP and Chair of the Defence Select Committee in the Commons. Good morning to you, Tobias.
Good morning to you.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us. I would like to get your thoughts on just issues going on related to Ukraine as well. But first of all, I must ask you about Partygate and this report that is coming out in a few moments' time. We're going to discover whether, well, officially, we already know that the report is damning of Boris Johnson. Do you think it matters?
The report does matter. Process matters. I think it was reflected in some of the responses that you're getting. Parliament needs to be seen to be held accountable. The British people need to be able to see that. But the fact that you're unable to move straight to Ukraine, and you're writing me to talk about this, shows that this continues to dominate, to distract. And I'll make it very clear from here in Westminster, you know, colleagues have really peaked on this issue. I think the nation has to some degree as well. And the longer this pantomime drags on, you know, the more Boris actually loses that support from, you know, what was an absolutely loyal base. The more we're not able to focus on the potential Labour policies, they're avoiding scrutiny right now. And of course, the more the Prime Minister's plans, the Prime Minister's vision, the Prime Minister's answers and solutions to some of the big issues that we need to be focusing on don't get the attention that they should be receiving. They are all overshadowed. So, you know, I think the politics, the British people want us to get back to politics. Johnson has resigned, don't forget. He saw this report more than before anybody else. Nobody's seen this report yet. It's yet to be published. So
yeah, but he didn't resign over a report that said you did nothing wrong, did he? I mean, we know what it's going to say. But you mentioned, you know, the government would like us to be focused on other things. What, do they want us to be talking more about the junior doctors on strike, the NHS in crisis? Do they want us to be talking more about how there's this massive backlog of asylum claimants, which is driving even more people arriving on boats, 1,500 already this week, more coming today? Do we want to be talking about rising inflation, interest rates going up, mortgages being impossible to pay in a few months' time for many, many hundreds of thousands of families, people not being able to afford to put their electricity on, to run the washing machine, to afford food for their kids? I mean, kids missing a year of education. I mean, I could go on. Do you really, would you prefer us to talk about that, Tobias?
Yes.
Really? Because I'm not sure that works out too well for your party.
You've just spoken for a second, so let me reply. It's absolutely our job to talk about the difficult issues, to provide the solutions to some of the challenges that Britain faces. We can't do that when we're having internal battles here in Parliament. So, yes, whether they are tough or whether they are easy, that is the job of the British government. And at the moment, we're not able to do that because we've got this pantomime continuing. It's time to draw a line. It's time to move forward.
OK, I will move forward, but I want to ask you just also about a report out yesterday, Guido Fawkes' website you'll know about, which involves an allegation which is against Sir Bernard Jenkins, one of the leading members of this Privileges Committee that's been leading this, what Boris Johnson calls a witch hunt and a kangaroo court against him. And he, it has emerged, attended his wife's 65th birthday party in the Commons, in the Eleanor Lang, the Deputy Speaker's rooms. It was, by all accounts, a birthday party. When we were in London was in Tier 2. The rule of 6 indoors still applied. Boris Johnson has called this monstrous hypocrisy and says Sir Bernard Jenkins should resign. Should he?
Well, an awful lot of detail there. Let's follow the process. There's a protocol here. I'm not aware that Bernard Jenkins misled Parliament, because that's what the crux of this matter. That's the crucial allegation,
yeah.
That is what this matter is all about. There is an allegation that you've just read out. Firstly, it'd be for the police to investigate that and to then make a statement from there. But I go back to what I was saying before. Boris Johnson has seen this report. He had an opportunity to make a personal statement to the chamber, which he could have done. That's in his rights. Prior to a vote of all of Parliament, the whole of the House of Commons, on this very report as well. Now, that indeed may go ahead, but ultimately Boris Johnson has chosen to resign straight away. So, in fact, whatever the result of the vote here, it will make no difference. Boris Johnson has left the building.
OK. Can I ask you, though, I mean, there's a lot of people are getting in touch. I'm asking whether this matters to them or not. And they say, look, it doesn't matter. But there's a reason it doesn't matter, not because they didn't care about these rules and this, but because they figured you're all lying. You're all lying politicians. You're all prime ministers lie. All politicians lie. They don't trust any of you. And they think that everyone was breaking the rules. Now, you actually apologised some while ago for actually attending a what was billed as a Christmas party, strictly forbidden under the Tier 2 rules in December 2020. The Iraq-Britain Business Council event, you said it was fully COVID compliant and you attended for business purposes, but it was billed on their on their website as a Christmas party for 27 guests. Do you think it's the case that actually an awful lot of people, including, I'm going to guess, pretty much most MPs and civil servants, were actually attending events that were completely illegal and they were flouting the rules, and that's why they don't seem to think it's so important?
Yeah, I mean, just to correct what you just said then, it was never labelled or billed as a Christmas party, so I wouldn't have attended.
It was described on the organisers' website as a Christmas party.
No, it was never on the website. It was then tweeted afterwards to say, by some individuals, to say, interesting Christmas party, which then allowed the media to assume it was a Christmas party. Anyway, I did apologise for that. The police were not involved and I didn't mislead Parliament. But you're absolutely right. Events such as that don't help build trust with the British people. And that, I'm afraid, is what the Conservative Party has hemorrhaged on a more general basis because of what we've done to the country in the last 18 months. We are starting to rebuild. We're starting to regroup. We're starting to focus on what matters. We got, fiscal responsibility has returned to the party. That is what these individuals should be considering when they continue to then make these headlines and keep this news cycle moving forward. Right. I really make it very, very clear. Is this the legacy that a former Prime Minister wants? I really do ask them to reconsider and ask, what would Thatcher or Churchill make of their behaviour today? Let's move forward.
That's a very good question to ask indeed. Let me ask you about Ukraine as well. I mean, we have seen that counter-offensive is definitely now begun. We're hearing that from all sides. But there are particularly concerns that Belarus announced that they have begun taking delivery of tactical nuclear weapons from Russia. Again, a story that we'd expect to be on the front pages if it wasn't for all the other news. And I want to talk to you about the horrific events in Nottingham as well. But that is very, very scary, is it not?
It is, but again, we need to be able to look at Putin's rhetoric and then digest it and understand how this fits into what's called the escalatory ladder, because he's been promising and threatening this for some time. And it shows that actually Putin is on the back foot. The Ukrainians have done an incredible job from a defensive capability, stopping Russia from completely taking over their country. And they've now moved from defensive operations to offensive. And they've yet, in fact, make it clear to actually provide their major push. They're doing some probing, shaping operations, but they've got a number of brigades waiting for the green light to then mount that, singular attack. And what we're seeing, Putin is starting to panic, making these statements, hoping to knock us off course, even taking out that Kakava Dam, which illustrates that he did not have faith in the Russian military to be able to hold this crossing point across the Dnieper River. So he decided to blow it up instead, causing damage to his side as much as indeed to the Ukrainians, and of course removing the water supply for Crimea. It's going to be a testing 3 or 4 months, but I make it very clear that what I'm pleased to see is Western resolve led by Britain fermenting itself, and that'll be, I think, realised as well as the NATO summit taking place in Vilnius very, very shortly. In the meantime, it's Russia, it's Putin that is starting to retreat, starting to realise that this is not going his way in any aspect at all.
We certainly hope so. Look, we're running out of time, Tobias Ellwood. I do want to ask you, look, you often speak, your hat on as Defence Select Committee. I know also, you're a father as well. I don't think any parent in particular could have watched what happened in the Nottingham case, this horrific knife rampage, a man still in custody as yet to be charged. But the loss of life we saw, a caretaker aged 65, a grandfather, Ian Coates, but also I think the focus yesterday very much for this vigil for Grace O'Malley Kumar and Barnaby Webber, both 19-year-old students, friends at Nottingham University, walking home from a night out, celebrating the end of term and being stabbed to death. Absolutely harrowing. The words of both of their parents talking about losing one father, losing my baby boy, and another father calling for everyone to look out for each other. I mean, is it not every parent's worst fear to lose their child in such an awful incident?
Absolutely, and I think our thoughts and prayers goes to all those who have been affected. These events take place, they unfold, they're a shock to the nation, the headlines come through, and then we learn about the individuals, the personalities, the innocence behind this, that they were just targeted randomly in this way. And indeed, I lost my brother in the same way in a terrorist attack. Just he was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and it tears apart your life. It's absolutely devastating indeed. We clearly need to learn more about the motives behind this particular attack, but I'm pleased to say that the police and indeed the Home Office are doing all they can to support, but absolutely shattering, where your lives are torn apart because of a singular event such as this. Reckless.
Indeed. Tobias Ellwood, thank you for joining us this morning. Appreciate it. Covered a lot of ground there. 8:45 is the time.